All right, today we're going to address breastfeeding. A lot of people wonder, is it really a big deal if I'm breastfeeding? Is this really a good point? Like, should I go through all this work? Because it's a pretty hard 6 weeks, Mom. After the baby comes out, having your nipples adapt, learning about that. So many babies are born these days with a lot of birth trauma, or mom and dad didn't have the nutrient level, and we are seeing more and more midline defects. That could be tongue ties, it could be lip ties, it could be buccal ties. There could have been trauma during the birth that would have misaligned the bones in the neck, which affect the bones in the face, which affect the muscles that coordinate sucking. And so all of that can be an issue. So one, we just want to affirm your choice in breastfeeding to encourage you in that journey, because it's usually pretty difficult for the majority of people to stick with it for the first 6 to 12 weeks with the amount of transition it is for mom. But also we just want to lay out how many massive benefits come from breastfeeding.
Yep, and I think we should start the conversation with, what does it take to actually breastfeed for a baby? And it is an enormously complicated process. It requires, I think, 42 different pairs of muscles for a baby to be able to coordinate the suck and swallowing process. And so all that has to be coordinated through their nervous system, and that has to be working with muscles that are working and bones that are moving appropriately. So it's a lot of work for the baby. Also a lot of work for mom who just pushed the baby out and is in recovery and getting her body healed up. So it's a hugely complicated process. But the benefits are tremendous. I mean, we could start with just like the sucking and swallowing process, how that helps develop the nervous system. The nervous system when a baby is born is not fully developed. The baby relies on just the bottom part of their brain, the brainstem, and the cranial nerves, which are largely activated during the sucking and swallowing process. Then the bones of the face and the tongue, as a baby is nursing, they're pressing their tongue up against the roof of their mouth to squeeze milk out of the breast, and how that helps shape and develop the different cranial bones, which help the cranial nerves communicate better, and how that helps with mouth development long term. And so one of the things that we like to talk about is, like, the longer you breastfeed, there's a lesser likelihood of your baby or your child needing braces later on,
because it sets their teeth.
So it helps with mouth development.
So there's a lot of people who say, oh, my daughter has a ridiculously high palate. How many times have you heard that? And a lot of that is that if we see that kid when they're 2, we can almost guarantee that mom wasn't able to breastfeed, or she chose not to breastfeed. Or
really struggled to breastfeed because of the high palate, and they just kind of fought through it. But it was kind of a struggle the whole time.
It was so it was a big issue. That high palate, so the palate goes up in the air like this, the breast actually will start to spread the jaw. And so the deeper that the breast gets into the mouth, the more it sets those teeth. And so we see kids, we can tell just by looking at your kid how their teeth have developed, whether or not they were breastfed, and also whether or not they used a pacifier, because those two things really affect the oral facial development.
Absolutely. And so the nervous system helps get developed better. Even the nutrients inside of the breast milk, there's nothing that could ever replicate the amount of nutrients, especially the nutrients that are designed for your child at that stage of their development. In whatever's going on in your environment, your body literally changes the constitution of the breast milk to be best suited for your baby at that exact moment in time, through glands that you have and receptors that you have on your nipple that take in the baby's saliva and change what your breast milk is constituted at that time.
Yeah, every time you feed them, the next feed is affected by the saliva on the nipple. So even for your moms that are choosing to breastfeed and you're these pumping warriors and you're doing all of that, which is amazing and such a labor of love, or you're going back to work, it's really important to get your baby's saliva on your nipple every day, because it's going to constitute the breast milk to what it needs. So when people are sourcing milk from other people, like they didn't get to have their breastfeeding journey, it's important to know a couple of things. How old was the baby that was demanding this milk? Because if mom is giving a 2-month-old, 9-month-old milk, it's still better than what they would make in a can with formula, because it's going to be biological, but that's different milk than that baby needs. There's even a difference between AM and PM milk, because PM milk has sleepies in it, AM milk has wakies in it. And so labeling your milk, if you choose to pump, when you pump it, so that you don't give your baby wakies when they need to be getting sleepies.
Yeah, absolutely. And so even the nutrients inside of it, the fats that are in it, the sugars that are in it, are specifically designed to help your baby with their developing brain at that specific point in time. Then if you go into the gut and how much the gut helps, how the gut is helped by the different digestive enzymes that are in the milk, just literally priming this gut to be able to eventually take food on at some point, because a baby is born with a gut that's not fully developed. They've got a huge intestinal barrier that is helped by breastfeeding and breast milk getting into the gut to help those the barriers close to prevent leaky gut syndrome. And then going from the gut to the immune system, a baby does not have their own immune system until 6 months. And so a huge part of how baby fights off what is happening in the outside environment happens through mom and her already developed nervous system and her already developed immune system to pass that information and those attributes on to baby, so the baby can help be developed with their immune system, because they don't have one of their own until 6 months.
So breastfeeding isn't like this really cool, neat thing that is neat that our body does, but it's not really necessary. It's absolutely the most perfect food for the baby. Absolutely. And we are obviously not anti feed your baby, right? And there's a big push for fed is best. And truly, breast milk is the best thing for your baby. Obviously, you need to feed your baby any way that you can. But if you're this video is really for you in a tough place, if you're like, I just want to quit, I don't think I can do this, then we want to encourage you about how much it's helping your baby. The other things that the research shows is that your breast milk, the longer you breastfeed, there's a reduction in allergies and asthma and eczema and all of those things. Ear infections. Every single childhood malady is decreased for those who breastfeed. It's research. It's proven. That's not us saying, oh, we think you should. It's actually a part of what happens. And so with your choices, when you're having a hard time and you're struggling, especially in those first 6 weeks, but really 6 to 12 weeks, right? That timing, if it is absolutely horrible for you to breastfeed, if you are so much in pain, if you have bleeding nipples, you want to call a lactation consultant in. You want to get a pediatric chiropractor on your team. You want to see a craniosacral therapist. These are people who specialize in these areas. Dr. Vin's done lots of cranial training. We work with so many CLCs and IBCLCs in the area, and they know that chiropractic care changes this, because that latch, that coordination of those 43 muscles is completely dependent on the nervous system that 98% of babies have a problem with after birth. Because birth is traumatic, no matter if it was a perfect vaginal delivery and the baby just shot out of you like a water slide into a birth pool with a midwife, or they were yanked out by a vacuum or forceps or a C-section with an OBGYN. So there's all spectrums of birth. And there's also just trauma emotionally, whatever mom was going through at the time. Baby came early, baby stayed late. All of those things feed into the tension reflex in the baby. And so if you have a baby who's having difficulty nursing, if they're very tense when you hold them, if you feel like they can't open their mouth, or you can look at them and they open one side of their mouth more than the other, that can mean that the jaw is involved. We've found a lot of jaws with latching infants as a problem. You want to reach out in your community to find people who can serve you. Usually the CLCs and IBCLCs, the people who are trained in lactation consulting, work with chiropractors that they know have a good reputation with that. So if you're not watching near to us, that's a great first step to look for someone to help you. But this whole thing really is an investment in your child. And if you can get through those first 6 to 12 weeks of hard, especially those first 6 weeks, because I'll tell you, I tell all my moms, there's something magic that happens between 6 and 7 weeks where you're just like, oh, we get it. Now, is it 8 weeks for some moms? Yes. Is it 4 weeks for other moms? Yes. But on average, something happens between 6 and 7 weeks with your child's neurological development that you get it. Now remember, they have never done this before, and for you first times moms, you've never done this before. And so you both literally and figuratively suck at it. And so you guys just know that you need to learn together, but don't feel like you have to learn in the dark in your rocking chair at 3 o'clock in the morning alone. Hopefully,
that's probably when you're watching this video.
You might be watching this video at that time. Reach out to us. Let us know how we could help to serve you specifically in your area, or to help you find someone near you that can make breastfeeding happen. Because it's so much more than a really cheap way to feed your kid. It is literally going to change their life.